Hello, precious friends. What is this? This is what once was a pot full of broth. If you'll recall, I ended up with quite a bit of broth, perfecting my chocolate cake recipe. I ended up with about 3 quarts of beef broth, which is lovely, but I can only drink so much of it. So, I'm going to pull this off the heat so you can see. I put it all in my big saucepan. You can see this is where the broth started, the level of it. I put it in the refrigerator and let it get cold, and I lifted the fat. The fat, of course, rose to the top and solidified into a cake. I lifted that cake off, then I strained it through a strainer to get as much of the solids out. You don't have to really strain it. You can strain it through coffee filters if you want to. But I just strained it through a fine strainer to get all the big chunks out. And then I put it on the stove and started out about 3 quarts. And when it cooked down to about 1.5 quarts, I took out 2 cups of it. Set that aside. And we're going to let this cook all the way down to where all the water is completely out of it, and it's going to form a film on the bottom of the pan. And then that film is going to brown. And that browning is called the Maillard effect. It's not technically caramelization, because caramelization is the browning of sugar. This is the browning of protein along with the browning of sugar. So that's caramelization and the Maillard effect. And those two processes create intense and wonderful flavors. And we are going to be making a substance that in French cooking is called glace de viande, or meat glaze. And it is one of the most wonderful flavorings that you can ever hope to have in your arsenal, especially for carnivore cooking. Now this is going to have to cook a little while longer yet, so we're going to just let it bubble away happily, and I'll see you back here in just a little while when this gets all the way down and all the water's out of it. See you in a little bit. Here we are back again, precious friends, and look how much lower this is. This is probably about 2 quarts that have been cooked down into maybe 1.5 cups. If I was to let this cool now, it would cool into a very hard, almost like Jell-O. And we're going to let it cook down even further. But it's going to go real fast at this point. So when you attempt to make this at home, which I hope you will, keep in mind, when it gets down to this level, you're going to have to keep tabs on it, because if you burn this, the steam coming off of it is making my autofocus go funky. Anyway, if you burn this, sorry, there is no way out. You will have ruined it. So please keep an eye on it. We're going to put it back on the heat and keep an eye on it. And I will join you back here in a little while, probably only about 5 minutes my time, when it is cooked down to nothing but a film in the bottom of the pan. And then we're going to watch it brown, watch the magic happen. See you back then. We're back again, precious friends. I want you to see this has reduced down to maybe 2/3 of a cup. Do you see how dark it's gotten? It's very syrupy. And if I let this cool now, it would cool into something approximating the texture of a rubber ball. We're getting very close now. And I want you to try and see, although it's difficult to see past the steam, as I put it back onto the heat. You know you're getting very close, because if you can see, when it starts to boil again, the bubbles don't come up evenly all over the pot. They come up in clumps. And you'll also notice that as the mixture gets thicker, the bubbles get bigger. It's kind of volcanic. There's not much water left in here now. And this is when we start to get serious danger of burning. So I am going to turn the heat down to medium-low. I wish I could explain to you how good this smells. It smells like a giant roast beef cooking in the oven. And there's nothing in this except beef broth. There's no salt. There's no seasoning. There's nothing. You don't want any salt in it because the salt will just concentrate. And you want to be able to control the salt in your final dish. See how the boiling goes in irregular fits? That's because this liquid that's left in here is very little water. It's mostly protein. It's mostly collagen at this point. It's almost entirely liquid gelatin. But there are some other amino acids and other delicious things from the beef that are going to serve us well. This is going to be the most wonderful flavor enhancer that you've ever done. It really is pretty simple to make if you're careful. And you are going to love what it does for your food. So this is getting to the point where it's almost not boiling anymore. And pretty soon, it's going to solidify into a film on the bottom of the pot. I'm going to reduce the heat even further. We've got it down on low now. I'm going to keep it moving a little bit because that helps the water to evaporate. I know it's difficult for you to see it through the steam. Maybe if I can fan some of the steam away a little bit, it's a little easier to see. There we go. See that? Oh. I'm going to take it off, so hopefully the steam will clear a little bit and you can see. It's starting to brown already, and it's not even completely, the water's not even completely gone yet. This, precious friends, is the reaction that makes a grilled hamburger taste so delicious, or a well-seared steak so tasty. And I know this is kind of, again, like culinarily watching paint dry, but this is important. If you learn to make this, I am telling you, you will be so happy with it. See how the bubbles are getting real big and they're slowing down? The water is almost gone. It looks like lava bubbling in the bottom of a volcano caldera. Whoop, there's some water going. I know this is slow and it might be kind of boring, but I really want you to see what it looks like because that's going to be important. It's starting to form the film on this edge of the pan. I don't know if you can see it. See, when I move that, it moves real slow. It's like the thickness of honey now. And it's browning, but it's going to brown more because the bubbling is even going to stop eventually. You see, there's hardly any steam anymore because there's very little water left in it. The film is forming. This is when you want to keep the heat low because it can go from deliciously brown and savory to burnt and black and charcoal in a matter of a few seconds. And that's why we reserved some of the broth over here, because at some point we're going to want to stop this cooking process immediately. See, look, the film has formed. It hasn't solidified yet. It is going to, though. It's going to solidify so that it doesn't even move anymore in the bottom of the pan. We are very close. Please don't be tempted to turn up the heat to speed this up. It's way too easy to burn it. I'm tipping the pan a little bit just to even things out and see if there's a hotter spot in the pan. We can equalize the temperature. I'm trying to get better light in here, but really isn't working very well. It is nearly there, folks. It looks like caramel in the bottom of the pan, and there is somewhat of the nature of caramel in there because there is some glucose that's browning, but most of it is Maillard reaction, which is the browning of protein. Whoop, there's a little bit of water left. Now, we'll start to see a color change very, very soon. I wonder if I move it to a different burner that's more under the light. Maybe if I move it over here. Nope. We're just as good over here as we are anywhere else. Probably should have done this on my cooktop, but my cooktop is... It's harder for me to control than this, I guess, because I'm not used to it. And look, the browning right here and right here. Can you see it? On this side of the pan. And there's some right here. Now it's all burning all around on the side of the pan too. See? There's dark spots. So I could turn the dark spots around into the light. This is a solid film in the bottom of the pan now. It is gradually browning. Oh my goodness. The smell, you wouldn't believe. It's kind of like a combination of, it's making my mouth water, combination of a roast beef and a grilled steak and a well-charred hamburger all at the same time. Now, at this point, it can be ready to go for the next stage if you want. But you can let this get as brown as you want. I like to let it get a little browner. Look at this over here. See that? It's really dark. Gonna move that edge off of the heat so some other of it can get. So it'll be a little cooler over here. So it's only halfway on the burner now. You can see this is the part that's going to heat up. At this point, I could take it off the heat altogether and it would still continue to brown a little bit because there's so much heat loaded into the bottom of the pan. This is a very heavy bottomed saucepan, which is what you want. Yes, watching paint dry, watching gloss brown. It is boring and tremendously exciting to me at the same time. You can fast forward through this part if you want to, I'm sure, but I'm not going to fast forward this because I want you to be able to see. I want you to be able to see all of it. See, there's more browning right here. And we are very close, my friends. We are very close to stage 3. This is stage 2. Stage 1 is just pouring your broth and starting it boiling. That's what takes so long. It took me about 3 hours to cook this down. And it's taken about, 15 minutes once it got cooked down to a syrup to actually get to this point. Yep. Just about 15 minutes till I started this portion of this section of the video. I'm going to let it go a little bit longer. Get a little bit browner. And there we go. I don't want any of those brown patches that are there to cross over into burnt. And now, get ready for the steam. Oh boy, that didn't get as steamy as I thought it would. Oh my goodness, when you pour the extra broth in, that makes an incredible smell. I'm going to pause the video and get a spoon. Okay, here we go. Now I'm going to turn the heat back up so we can bring the cooled broth back up to temperature, and we are going to let it reduce again till it is a very thick very thick gel, just like right before it solidified into the bottom of the pan. And again, the steam is foxing out my autofocus. And one way that you can be sure that you didn't burn it is when you tip the pan. Look, all of that has dissolved. There's no black carbony bits on the bottom of the pan. If you had burned it, there would be black spots that wouldn't immediately dissolve in the reserved broth. So that's how you know you did it right. So I am going to let this cook down some more, and we'll see you back here when it is all cooked down to a glaze, and then we'll jar it up and we'll talk about what we can use it for. So here we are, friends. You can see that the bubbles are very large and they're stacking up on each other. That tells you that the density of the fluid that's bubbling is very thick. And let's wait till the steam clears. In just a moment, I am going to measure it and see how close it has come to 3/4 of a cup. We started with 3 quarts of broth, and we're aiming for 1/4 of a cup of reduction per quart. So that tells you how reduced it is. And it's very close. You can tell by looking at how the bubbles get very large and stack up on each other. And this has been cooking probably a total of about 3 hours, but most of it's downtime because you don't really have to pay attention to it for most of the time. It's only the last half hour or so, or hour. Half hour or so really, that you really have to pay much attention to it. So don't let the time involved put you off, because the vast majority of the time is just letting the pot simmer away on the stove by itself happily. So what I'm going to do now is I have my measuring cup here. I've already measured it once. I'm going to measure it and see how close we are to 3/4 of a cup. You know, whoops, it is right at 1 cup, or a tiny bit under, and I am going to call that good. I have here a clean canning jar and my canning funnel, and we're going to pour this carefully right in. This is a 1 cup canning jar. There we are. And this, whoops, you don't want to look at that. This, my friends, is going to cool into a wonderful thick paste. Now, you may have seen this on my counter. If you have ever used anything like this, and yes, I do use it on occasion out of convenience. This right here is so much better. And as we talked about, it is pure meat. It has nothing else in it. This has soy protein isolate and celery and carrot and all sorts of other things that, you know, you just really don't need. If you want meat flavor, this is what you need, precious friends. So we're going to let that cool, and we're going to come back later on when it's cool, and I'm going to show you what it looks like, and we are going to talk about what you can do with it. Yum, yum. Welcome back, precious friends. I promised you I would show you the end result of all our cooking, and here it is. Beef Glace de Viande. It has set up into a wonderful jelly. And you can actually cook it down even further to where it becomes nothing more than a paste. But that requires way too much time and attention, so I like this version. This is the most concentrated essence of what it is to be beef that I can think of. It's delicious. I have here a warm container of just plain old chicken broth, which is lovely enough. But if you take, you don't even need that much. About a half a teaspoon of this Glace de Viande, and stir it in here. Has to be warm for this because, of course, it's gelatinized. And then you taste this. Look at the color change. And I'm going to turn the camera around. Don't look at my messy kitchen. This is I can't tell you how good that is. It is so delicious. It's way more delicious than ordinary chicken broth. It's like really rich soup, but all it is meat. Chicken. This chicken broth I made by poaching a few chicken breasts in water in my slow cooker on low for about 6 hours, because I do that a couple of times a week to make chicken salad and to have just chicken meat for various and sundry things, and I keep the broth for sipping on and for other things, and this makes it so much more delicious. So let me turn you back to here. Here we have just a plain old 8 ounces of hot water. And we're going to take about a teaspoon of this Glace de Viande and stir it in here. And you know what you have? Better than any bouillon you could ever hope to find. This is no salt, no seasonings, no nothing, just the purest of beef flavors, and the Maillard reaction that we induced is going to it makes this taste so, so good. I'm going to take a spoonful. You can even put more in, but it's delicious, natural, wholesome beef broth, and it's practically instant. I'm telling you, you will be so happy that you went through the trouble of making this. Now, precious friends, I want to tell you, you can do the same thing with chicken broth, although you wouldn't want to let it brown as dark. You want it to get golden brown, or you don't even really have to brown it at all. You can just cook it down until it's gelatinous and it hasn't begun to brown yet, and jar it up and use it the exact same way. You can do the same thing with turkey or duck or pork. You can, I suppose, do it with lamb. I've never done it with lamb. That would probably be kind of strong, but if you like lamb, you could do it. And you can even blend the two broths. I have made beef and chicken together because that's what I had, and it was absolutely delicious. Please, my friends, you can use this. You can stir a few spoonfuls into, say, a cup of hot cream and make a mouth-watering gravy. You can stir it into soup. You can, like I said, you can just drink it. You can stir it into a ground beef recipe just to amp up the beefy flavor. You can stir it into a pan sauce. Anything that you want to add a rich, meaty, pure beef flavor. And as I said before, this is nothing but beef. No salt, no seasonings, no spices, no nothing. And it is one of the most delicious things that you will ever eat. So that's it for now, my precious friends. Peace, love, and meat. I'm going to turn the camera around again. Glace de viande. Please, please, please do this. You will not regret it. I love you all. Peace, love, and meat. Bye-bye.